Hi, I'm Adriana, and today I want to take you through 5 various techniques in Premiere Pro. Let's get started with the first technique.
The first technique I want to talk about is cropping for when you're doing something with effects or especially something with green screen. So here I have the same clip duplicated on the timeline. So I have just this woman in a puffy coat with some boxing gloves on. Now the reason I chose this particular clip is because I noticed here in the background of the green screen there is some color differences, just having to do with the lighting, and that happens, or sometimes the background is wrinkled and so it catches some shadows, which can cause some issues when you're doing your keying. So cropping can help a little bit to minimize those issues. So first of all, we're going to key it um, without cropping. So I'm just going to search for key, and we're going to use the Ultra key. So we're going to go ahead and pop that on there, and then we are going to key. So here, as you can see, I do have a short little clip in the background. There is a lot of issues. There's a lot of little clouding, and if we look at the alpha channel, we can see all of that noise and cloudiness from the fact that there was a lot of shadows in the background. So if we go to our matte generation, we can start kind of playing with these sliders and seeing if we can clean it up. So with the transparency, I'm not going to touch it because I see that she is very solid. If she was a little bit, if you can see her features, like she's not solid white, then you would start to play around with the transparency. So I'm going to look at the highlights, but the highlights aren't doing much, so I'm going to go ahead and reset that. It's all going to be in the shadows because what we have is a lot of shadows. So I'm pulling down quite extensively. As you can see, even at 4, I still have issues here and here. So then I can kind of look at the tolerance, but that's not doing much for me because the green was pretty well there. So I'm going to use the pedestal, and this usually cleans it up. So now we've got solid black and solid white. And if we go back to our composite, we see that we have those solid colors. And then we can go to matte cleanup. We can probably choke this up a little bit since we are getting some of that color there. Probably not that far, probably around there. And I don't see a lot of spill, so I think that's fine. And then you can just kind of move her over if you want to, just so you can see the background a little bit more. So then that's usually how you would key. It means that you have to make sure that you're looking at the whole background, that you're making sure that, you know, everything is covered. What I'm talking about trying to do, and this only works with clips like this where your subject isn't moving throughout the whole frame, where they're not doing a huge large movement. So this works very well for clips like this where your subject is just kind of stationary and not moving quite a lot. So the first thing I would do is I would go to crop, and I'm going to crop my video. So I'm going to crop from the left to about there, and then I'm going to crop the right side to about there is fine. So that means I'm not having to look at this area. I'm not having to look at this area when I go ahead and do my key. So now we're going to go ahead and do our key. Now there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way, but I feel like this gives you a much cleaner look because you're getting rid of a lot of problem areas. So there, you can see instantly we got rid of almost everything. There is some issues right here. I can see it right away because we have that straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my alpha channel and see, I see there and there. We're going to go to our matte cleanup, and again, I'm not going to touch the transparency or the highlights. I'm just going to bring down the shadows, and that got rid of almost everything. We just have a little bit right there, but I haven't had to pull all the way down. So I'm just gonna use my pedestal and we are clean. And then we can go again to our composite and move her over. And then I think I'm just gonna choke. As you can see, we've got that line right there. So I would just choke this in. So that is in our matte cleanup. Go ahead and choke that in probably about the same amount. Yep. And it doesn't look like I have any spill either here, so that's good. Spill is usually like here, it's a little bit, but it's tolerable, where we get a little bit of the green reflected in your subject from the background. But it's not so bad. You can probably do a little bit of color correcting and that would get rid of the whole thing. So this is the first technique, cropping for effects. So especially when you're doing green screen, cropping ahead of your keying can help already get rid of a lot of your issues. Now you can, you know, do this and then put a garbage mask around it, but why not just do it from the get-go, crop out what you don't need. So that's technique number 1. The next technique I want to show you is frame hold. So adding a frame hold to your sequence or your clip allows you to freeze the frame and then hold it for a period of time and then let your clip move on. And so here I have an example of it. So here we have this biker who does a jump. We freeze them in midair and then we let them come back down. And so the way to do that is, I have a second clip here, is you want to move your playhead to where you want the frame hold to happen. So I want it to happen just as he hits that ball. So here's where I want my frame hold to happen. And then there's a couple things here that you will see for frame hold. So you will have add frame hold, which will add the frame hold at this section and then get rid of the rest of your clip. So that's not what you really want to do. What you want to do is insert a frame hold segment. So this is exactly what it's going to do. It's going to insert a segment with just that frame hold. So if we go here to insert frame hold, as you can see, it split our clip at the point where I left my playhead. It added a frame hold and then it kept the rest of my clip. So if we play this back, and there we see the hold, and then bam, the ball leaves. And so by doing the insert frame hold segment, what you can also do is we can shorten that frame hold. If we feel that we don't want it to be 5 seconds long, I believe is the default. So if we just wanted to hold for like 2-3 seconds, then that allows you to do that. Or if you want to extend it and hold it for much longer. So this is the technique of how to insert a frame hold. The next technique I want to talk to you about is using adjustment layers. If you come from the Photoshop world, you will be very familiar with what adjustment layers do, and may be surprised that you can actually use them in Premiere Pro. If you've never used adjustment layers before, they are sort of an empty container that allows you to add effects to a series of clips or a hierarchy of clips. So if you have your adjustment layer up here and have 2 video clips here, it will add the effects to both the layers. If you have a series of clips and you extend your adjustment layer, then it will cover all of the clips. So let's take a look at it in action. We have the same clip over and over. So traditionally you would go to your effects panel and look for something, let's do color correction, because this is kind of shot in S-Log, which tends to be very muted. So we have it there. We'll go to our effect controls and we see that Lumetri color is there. If we scroll down our basic correction, you do have some camera LUTs that are already here. So like if you look at the universal HD, it actually emphasizes some of the colors, but it does darken um, our footage. So you can take a look and kind of scroll through some of these and see if any of them you like. You can kind of bring down the intensity if you want to. I'm just going to leave it at none because I actually want to look at the creative section, because I found a LUT here that I actually do like, which was this 5218 from not the monochrome, but this one here. And I believe it was a 20. Yes, here we go. So it just emphasizes the colors a little bit. It keeps it soft. So we see the difference. It's bringing up the colors. And then I'm just going to make some minor adjustments. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of exposure, not much. Less than 1, probably about there. So I want to be able to see her face here, but I don't want to blow out my highlights completely. I do want to add a little bit of contrast. There we go. And then in my highlights, I'm just going to bring them down a tad just to balance everything out. I want to keep it soft. I want to keep it nice and pastel in the background. So you can do things, you know, with the adjustments here. You can sharpen. Let's sharpen it a tiny bit. We can add faded film effect, or I think I'll leave it at 0. I really don't want it. Keep it nice. We can add a little bit of vibrance to emphasize some of the more intense colors. And then you have the ability to add kind of a tint to the shadowy sections and then to the highlight sections. To the highlights, I do want to add a little bit more of a warmth color. And then in my shadows, I'm going to go towards the blue. Not as far. There we go. So then now we have a nice little palette there of orangey yellows and blues. So you see how it emphasizes the colors a lot more. So if you had a series of clips from the same shot on the same camera, same day, you know, you can copy your effect and go to the next clip and then hit paste attributes and then make sure your Lumetri is checked in and then hit OK, and now it copies over your color correction. But adjustment layers allow you to do this overall. So I have a lot more clips that were from the same day, so I'm actually going to bring them onto the timeline so you can just take a look at what this will do. So I have in my project panel the ability to add a new item here with this one, and we're going to go to adjustment layer and hit OK. And so now I can bring this adjustment layer and pop it on top of my first clip here. Actually, it was this clip here. So I'm going to do it to the first clip first so you can see what it does. So I've already copied that effect, so I can actually just paste it onto my adjustment layer. So there I have it pasted. So as you can see, now if I turn off this layer, you will see that it is not there. So the effect is attached to that specific layer. So now I have all these other clips from the same camera, same day, and now that effect carries over to all of these other ones. And you can see without, very dark, very muted colors, and with. We bring in and emphasize the colors. We keep the palette nice and soft, but it carries over that effect. So that is what adjustment layers allow you to do. You can add effects, you can add all sorts of things. And this will bring me over to the next technique I wanted to talk about, which is using LUTs or gradients. So a LUT is what we call a lookup table, and that could be something like specific to a camera, a lens, or it could be oops, or it could be something creative, like this is still film stock, but we can look at like something like SL blue, and this will give you a totally different feel, as you can see. So this is a color lookup table, and it's basically just like a filter, something like what you see on Instagram. So it's basically a filter, but they're called lookup tables. And then here you have the intensity slider for that, so you can bring it up or bring it down or intensify it even more, however you're feeling about it. And you can go to something like matrix blue. And there we have a totally different look. It's an easy way to create a bunch of different looks for your film. But you can also do something like, I'm going to bring in another adjustment layer up here. I turned off the other one for a second. Actually, I'm going to turn it back on, but I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to bring this back to our other lookup table. Okay, so say I wanted to add a gradient effect to this. Now I can add it on this layer as well. I just want to emphasize how much you can do, but I could pop it in here. I'm just going to pop it into a different adjustment layer so that we can see the hierarchy at work. So I'm going to go to my effects, and I'm just gonna go gradient, and we have something like 4-color gradient, which is fine. And so here we have the ability to choose colors, so I can go in here and maybe not something so intense. Maybe, you know, our palette is very pastel-y, so something like that. And then there wasn't a lot of green, so I think I'm going to switch this to a red or a pink. And then this fuchsia, let's go with something in this range. And then this intense one, let's go with something. We've got a yellow and a pink. Let's go with a purple. Why not? A lilac. So we have a very soft muted palette there. You can blend them together a little more if you want to. You can play with these sliders. You can change the position, so you can kind of move them around, and do that with your video. So then at the bottom we do have a blend mode, so then we can go to like add, we can go to multiply and just go through them and see which one we like. So we have an opacity slider here if you want to bring down the intensity. I think I'm gonna go something like soft light, and there's my soft light. I tend to like this blend mode. And then bring up the opacity on this and bring down the blend quite a bit. Soft light is not doing it for me today. So you can just kind of go through these and see which one you feel is gonna work for you. It might be that you need to change it a little bit, or it could also be your hierarchy. So see how that makes a difference. So we changed the hierarchy of our effects. So instead of having the gradient on top, I actually have my Lumetri color correction on top, and then I have the gradient underneath. So now let's bring the opacity up a little bit more so you could see it start to pop in right there. And then we can go to, let's see if soft light is doing it. So that's a little bit better. And there we can see the gradient kind of pop in to the background. There we go. So that is how you can do quick color work effect with lookup tables and gradients to add some dynamic range to your already color corrected video. The last technique I want to go over is audio syncing to multiple clips, or audio syncing two different sources of video with one processed audio. So in this kind of setup that I have here, I have two different cameras. So I have this camera and then I have this camera, and so each of them have their own audio that comes from the onboard mic, which we use as reference audio. And then I have the two microphones, so they're recording two separate tracks, which I had here, one here and one here. And then what I did is I took these two separate tracks, and once I had the levels normalized to what I wanted them to, and put in the effects that I needed to, I then processed them into one audio source. So this is my processed audio right here, which has both our channels together. So what you want to do, if you're doing a simple thing like this where you have two long videos and then one audio source to sync to, you can just select them all and then go to synchronize and go to audio and hit OK. And I will see you as soon as this is done processing. Okay, so this is done processing, and as we can see, it synced up the audio. So I'm going to mute the camera audio because it'll cause some really echoey audio. And then usually what I do is I look at each camera, I look at a section where the person is talking, and then I kind of toggle this to full screen and play a section. So there I can see that that audio is synced. And then I will turn off this camera, and so I can look at the second camera, and I will look at a section where they're speaking, and then double check that audio. So let's do that.
And it has, so you could, they have a bunch of photo cards in here too,
So then I can see that both of the audios have fully synced to my processed audio clip. Now, as you can see, there's like a bunch missing, and that's because I kind of shortened the clip. But you also have instances where you have multiple video clips from different cameras or different angles, and then you have one audio source to sync to. So in those instances, what you really want to do is you want to start not from the beginning, but from the end. It allows you to sync up the audio a lot better. If you start from the beginning, then it starts to shift things, and you may notice that it'll roll edit or do some weird cuts. But if you start at the end, it'll just lay the video over the audio sections that it needs to. So here I have I sliced up my video and edited out some sections so that it will have some gaps here. So I'm going to start from the back, and I'm just going to audio sync. Okay, and then I will do that with the next one. Okay, so there we are. We synchronized everything. So that was just me setting up. But as you can see, it would be easy if you start from the beginning. What's going to happen is if you have clips that are kind of overlapping as you have them on the timeline, when you start to synchronize, it's going to cut like the front section of your other clip. So you really do want to start from the back. So this is how you would do two different forms of audio synchronizing two cameras to one audio source, and audio synchronizing various clips to the same audio source. So that's all I had for you today. I really hope that you enjoyed this techniques and try them out for yourself. And then I hope to continue doing some more Premiere Pro videos for you in the future. See you next time.